Hi, everybody. Sorry we're a few minutes late for the last installment of Robert's Haunted Pajama Party. Welcome back for the last of the series. I can't believe 10 days have gone by. It's been a wonderful run for this little series, but we're going to be doing some other things shortly, which I'll tell you back in about a few minutes. But I do want to thank you all, those of you joined and stayed with us for these last 10 days. I know that's a lot of Robert Painley to deal with. You can just ask my husband, Mark. That's a lot of me in a short amount of time. So I really do appreciate you sticking around and hanging out. So on the occasion of our 10th day here, Mark actually made some pina coladas, which look delicious, and I'll get to in a little bit as well, because those look good. But I do want to thank you again for joining us on the Enlightened Living Network, Enlightened Living channel this evening. It's 10 o'clock. We can get started. So first of all, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, mothers to be, mothers who were. I just it's an amazing day to remember my mom in particular, who has passed already. But we'll get to talk about my mom in a little bit, because there's just some things that I want to talk about. We've reached the end of the series, and I don't have an endless supply of ghost stories. Otherwise, I'd love to keep doing this every night. But we are going to come back in a different form. So look for us. We're going to be talking a lot more, but we're going to be inviting some stories and bringing some guests on to talk about their ghost stories. We're also going to be doing a lot of teaching in this space. And we're also going to be probably changing up the time a little bit. It looks like the next time that I will be doing a show of sorts will be on May 19th at 7 p.m. That's the date we're shooting for. That's the time we're shooting for. So please look out for that, as we will be doing promotion for the next incarnation of what we're doing here, to try and provide some perspective from a mediumship perspective on what I do, how I do it, and maybe things that you could do to help yourself develop your gift, and things that you can do to help maybe look at your gift a different way or from a different perspective. We want to cover all those aspects of things. But from a ghost story perspective, this was always meant as just kind of pure entertainment with a little bit of kind of tips, as it were, to try and figure out what you should do if you were in certain circumstances. So I hope you really have enjoyed the stories. So tonight is a special Mother's Day edition, only because it lands on Mother's Day, and I have some Mother's Day stories. So we're going to go there. But first of all, a few thanks, obviously. Thanks to Dr. Ruth Anderson, to Terry Angel, to my husband, Mark, for making these beautiful pina coladas and all the drinks during the time that we've been on air here. And so I really appreciate all this help and efforts. He's been running around this house, making drinks and, getting my cards ready so I have bullet points to talk about, and cleaning the house and doing all the dishes. It's been exhausting watching him do all that work for this past 10 days. So I hope that I appreciate all this hard work. For so many of you who tuned in around the world, I've gotten some great feedback from about stories that you have and things. So thank you all for watching. It's just been a lovely 10 days, and I really want to thank you very much for everything you're doing. And again, this series is going to end, but one more time, if you would, please say some prayers for Matthew Delfino and for Stephen Kennedy as they go through some difficult times. And also, if your mother has passed or someone who has passed, take the opportunity today to say a little prayer for them this evening before you go to bed. Okay. So let's get started. I think so today I want to talk about moms, and I want to talk about mom energy and how I kind of perceive this energy, because it's, as a man, even as a gay man, I don't get that feeling of being a mom. I just don't know what that feeling would be like. It's not in my DNA to be able to know what that feels like. But I do get it. And I do have to say, I'm able to compartmentalize a lot what I do and my feelings and my sensations, because I have to remain connected with spirit when I'm connected with the other side. So when I'm when I'm doing my work, I try to compartmentalize as much as possible. But I do have to say, other than the fear factor that I have on occasion when I've encountered things that I wasn't expecting, and we've talked about some of those through the series of ghost stories, um, is the mom energy. I've never ever felt anything like that, and it's been the only time usually in my readings that I have broken down and cried. I mean, I got emotional the other day when we were talking about my dog who passed, uh, that was still tough. But nothing. It's just not the same energy as the mom energy I get. It's so powerful, and I break down usually when I have a mom on the other side who wants to give that love to a child or to a spouse or to something, not a spouse as much, but to a child in particular. That bond between mother and child and that love and that unconditional love that comes through is just out, it's outstanding and astounding, and it leaves me gobsmacked because I can't think of a better word than that to describe it, because I only sense it through the emotion, and it's something that I don't feel. And I don't know if fathers feel the same thing. I'm not a father either, but I think giving birth to a child has an attachment to it. When you look at the animal kingdom and you see how mothers protect their young and the ferocity with which they do so in that life, it's the same type of feeling, and that love and that wanting the best for that child is just so emotional for me to process. So thank you to all the moms out there. Thank you to my mom. We'll be talking about you a little bit later to close out the show today. But I want to start off with one of the first ones that actually brought me to tears, because it was, again, this energy. But in this case, it was actually from son to parent to his mom. And it really was one of the most amazing readings I've ever done. And I got a call from a nurse in Miami, and I drove down to go see her. I didn't really know what had happened. I know that she had lost her son, but didn't know anything else really, because I tell clients not to tell me what's going on, so I get it clean. Um, and I got there, and normally, again, like I think I told everybody yesterday, my process of going into a home and getting a sensation, and then coming back and talking and protecting myself, protecting them. So I did the same. I was going to do the same thing here, but when I walked into this house, I was drawn straight away. I said hello to my client and just said, "Sorry, I've got to go back to this room." So I got in the house, and I went straight back to a bedroom where the door was open, but it was filled with boxes, and more boxes stacked up in this room. And I didn't know anything about it, but I asked her about her son. I know, your son. You told me that your son had passed, but I'm getting your son here. I believe he's asking about a skateboard, and she said, "I have one." And I said, "Well, where is it?" She said, "Turn around in the closet behind you, open the door, and you'll see the skateboard. It's the only thing that's not in the box because it couldn't fit." So I opened the door, and there, sure enough, was a skateboard leaning up against one side of the wall. And I said, "Why? I don't know what this is about." So I pulled the skateboard out to kind of get maybe a little more contact with the energy that I was feeling. And I said, "I don't know what this is, but he's telling me that you used to yell at him when he would ride this skateboard." And she broke down. And again, uh, I said, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you what he's giving me. And it's all about the skateboard and how he used to yell at him. He said, "I feel so bad that I yelled at him, blah, blah, blah. I'm so sorry." I said, "That's not the point of what he's trying to get at." And he started to give me information. And I just looked at her and I said, "I can't tell you this. I can't." And she said, "No, I want you to tell me everything. Robert, you said, that you would tell me everything, and I want you to tell me everything. So just tell me." I'm like, "I can't tell you this." And so she got very insistent. And I looked her straight in the eyes, and I've never had to do this to a client before, but I said to her, "He's telling me it can't hurt me now." And she stopped crying. She was taken aback by it, as was I. And she started to laugh. And she said, That's exactly what he would say to me. And it changed the energy in the room. She got that he was there, that he was teasing her, and this wonderful feeling. And then all of a sudden, he's like, okay, he's moving away from the skateboard. He's moving away. He's like, he's talking about a bag of rocks. You have a bag of rocks in this house? And she goes, I do. Okay, who has it? I don't know who has a bag. That's not a common thing. I don't have a bag of rock in my house. And so she goes and she would you like to see him? I said yes. So she goes leaves the room, goes into, I'm assuming, her bedroom, comes out with a Crown Royal, perfect purple and gold bag, and she sets it down. I said, he's telling me that there is one blue stone in this bag. And she said, she opened up the Crown Royal bag and she dumped out all the rocks that were in there. And sure enough, they were all black and gray, but there was one stone that was blue in that bag. And I said, he wants you to make a necklace out of this stone and wear it so that you'll kind of remember him. And then she's told me, which I didn't know, was that this was his stone and it wasn't a necklace of his, and it fell out of the setting, and she just kind of threw it in the bag with the rest of them. And he was being very funny and just telling me things about, how she should, put his name on it. I won't tell you his name, but to emblazon his name and kind of bling it out a little bit for herself and stuff. And she was laughing, and it was the first time that she had really laughed. He had passed just 2 weeks before I went down to do this reading, and so I I was kind of enjoying the reading because he was so clear. And then he took a different tact, and I learned things from my readings as well. Almost every reading I try and learn and try and grow as a medium from. And he showed me himself sitting on a curb. And while he was sitting on this curb, he had his hands kind of outstretched like this. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but his arms were stretched out, and he's kind of holding them back out. And in one hand, there was this kind of glowing ball, this energy that was moving around and around in his hand. And I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what to make of it. And he told me that to ask his mom about a child that she didn't bring to term. And I asked her if she had had a child that she didn't bring to term, and she started to cry again. And she said, I always wondered about that soul. I won't get into details, but it was how I now know that if someone has had a miscarriage or something that didn't come to term, that how I get that soul energy. And watching this go around, and I just told her, this soul will be there when you cross. He is with that soul. He's with that energy, and just know that it would have been a son. And she wondered. She had the son that had passed. This one that I was talking about that had the skateboard was 18 years old when he passed. He passed in a car accident, and this other soul that he had in his hand was a year older. And when she lost that child, she never thought that she'd have another one. And this was kind of her miracle baby. And she had him for 18 years. And the bond was amazing. And this is when I started to cry, because she always wondered what would have happened, with this child, with this other soul, and knowing that they were both together on the other side, the love coming from her on this plane to her children, and the love from the other side coming to the mom was overwhelming. And it's one of the few times that I've actually lost it in a reading by getting so much emotion, so much energy. And it was just so lovely, so poignant, so beautiful, and it was a privilege as a medium, or just as a human being, to be able to feel that kind of love and energy. And so it was just one of those experiences I will never forget. And I'm so glad that I'm actually able to share it with everyone tonight, because I may have told that story a couple times publicly already, but I think it's one that deserves a lot of attention, particularly for mothers who have lost children, and to know that love connection and how they were in life. Sometimes that sarcastic-y, snarky, funny energy still coming through, so that they know that their children are okay. And again, just a beautiful reading. So that's the first story. And, and I'm going to have some of this pina colada because it looks delicious. Mark, yeah, did yourself good. Yummy. That's good. Hope you all are joining me with something wherever you are. So, it's all been only 10 days of this series. Mark hasn't had a ton of responsibility, but one of those responsibilities is to change the piece of paper so I can see what I'm doing, and it's not happening at the moment.
I did change it.
Oh, sorry. Oh, oops, he did. My fault. Oops.
I didn't put that much rum in that thing.
Exactly. I haven't had that much with you. But so, story 2 on the paper that's actually supposed to be there for me to kind of remind me of what it was. So, man, it's the last night. You think I'd be able to get through the series without making this many mistakes? The second story I want to tell you about is are all kind of family related. Kind of a little bit of a tribute to my mom who passed, but how my mom comes through. Again, if you remember back in the series, I told you that my mom was gifted, and she came through in many, many ways. And I won't tell you all the stories because there's so many times that she's come through. So before I start with my mom, I want to tell you about one of my sister's husband. I was staying at their house one time, and he's not gifted, but he does see things occasionally. And I was staying at my sister's house, and the kids were young. She's got a boy and a girl, and the children were young. And the boy had a room, and the girl had a room. My nephew, my niece. And so I was staying at the house one day, and before my nephew was born, they had a lab, and the lab was very sick at the time that my sister was pregnant with her first child. And his name was Calvin, Chocolate Lab. And Calvin was a lovely, lovely soul. And I told you yesterday, or the day before, maybe, about the dog energy and how I've connected with animals with this gift for a long time. And I knew Calvin was coming to the end, and well, my sister was pregnant, and they were going to the hospital, and I was kind of there with Calvin alone a couple days, and Calvin was having a tough time. And as soon as my sister had her firstborn, the Calvin unfortunately passed, and so but got to see the firstborn, and he was so protective of my sister, just a lovely animal, a lovely soul. And so now years later, and my nephew is probably about maybe 7, 8 years old, and my niece may have been four or five at the time. And one night I'm sleeping upstairs in the room, and I feel this nudge on the back of my calf while I'm laying in bed. And I roll over, and there's Calvin. This is 8 years after he passed, but there he is, just there, and he's nudging my leg. And I'm like, "Hi, Calvin." And so I kind of get up out of bed, and I roll over, and he's like, it's like he wanted to lead me someplace because he's turning around and kind of like popping up on his front paws a little bit. So I get up, and he walks me across the upstairs landing, and I get to my nephew's room. And when I get there, there is a woman who is kind of hunched, not, I don't hate to say hunched, but kind of bent over, kind of looking at him, almost kind of like comforting him, but kind of close and like right over the bed. And I didn't say anything, didn't do anything because, again, I wasn't sure who this was and didn't want to interfere. And so I just kind of stepped back and went back to bed. Got up the next morning. My sister was having coffee downstairs. And so I asked her, and I said, "Hey, do you ever have feeling of kind of something ghost in the house?" And she said, "Well, Dennis does occasionally. He sees his mom occasionally in the house." I'm like, "Got it, gotcha." I said, "Are the kids having nightmares? Because I just feel that they're having nightmares in the house." And she said, "They are." I'm like, "Okay, let me take care of this." I'm like, I saw your mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law's mom had died maybe, I will say, 20 years perhaps before my sister and he met. So my sister, I certainly never met her. That's why I didn't know who she was, kind of leaning over the bed. And I just said, "Look, if I see her again, then I know who this is and I know how to communicate with her." And so the following night, I actually did get up, and Calvin wasn't around this night, but I kind of got up and walked across and saw her again. And I explained to her that I love the fact that she is there, that her energy is there, but she is in fact all of her energy, all of that energy that that protection and the love and all that stuff is making the kids disturbed in their sleep because they're sensing the energy and they feel her and she's around and like love that you're here. Be here for the rest of their lives. Be a guardian angel over your grandchildren. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But what I need you to do is just kind of. She was trying to comfort them because they were having nightmares. She didn't realize that she was kind of causing them because of her energy. So I had to explain to her just to kind of back her energy up a little bit so that it wasn't affecting the children as much at this kind of development stage of their lives. And she did. And the dreams stopped. And, and then they had more peaceful sleep after that. So that was good. But as again, how, a mom, a grandmother energy, just watching over the children, how that energy is so intense for children who would never know their grandmother on the physical plane. She was there in spades, in spirit, watching over them, protecting them, and guiding them. And it was so wonderful to watch. And again, having the privilege of being able to experience that energy and helping that situation out just a little bit to try and make it better so everybody was comfortable was wonderful. So now I guess on to the last set of stories here. There's so many experiences with my mom that I could tell you about that my dad has experienced since she passed, and that other family members have experienced. But I got to kind of stick with a few to show you how my mom kind of still interacts with me. And one of the first ones, I think I told everybody, but I'm going to kind of reiterate the story so people maybe understand a little bit better if you haven't watched the entire series. My mom never told me about her gift her entire life. She didn't want to be known as the crazy lady in a small town who saw and felt things kind of like I do. I don't know the total extent of her gift because I only found out about it a couple days before she passed. And I was, 2 days before she passed, I was laying in the bed with her and comforting her. She was passing from ovarian cancer, and she kind of unfortunately wasted away. And the last 6 months were absolutely horrible for her. And the bravery that she faced that situation with is astounding to me. I know I wouldn't have the kind of energy and fortitude and grace with which she took that pain and suffering. But she was remarkable in that way. And she just wanted to make sure everybody else was taken care of. And so as I'm laying there in bed and she was talking, I said, Mom, you know what I do. But I have to tell you how you're going to cross. And because I've seen what's going to happen. And so I just, proceeded to tell her how this was going to happen and who was going to step forward and what's going to happen. And I knew that she would try and fight it somewhat. So I just said, look, I just need you to take one last breath, release it, and go. And she looked me straight in the eye and she said, I know, I've seen it too. And I said something to her that I probably shouldn't have said, and I won't say it now. But it wasn't a nice thing because it was the realization of doing this all my life and realizing that she's had the gift all her life. And she didn't want me to be criticized, ridiculed, growing up with this gift. And she didn't want to be known again as the crazy lady in town who had this gift. So she kept it very, very quiet. And I understand the reasoning for doing so, and I understand the reasoning that she didn't want me to talk about it either. She kind of we were talking about it, and she told me all about things that she had done, people that she had done not readings for, but just kind of ways that she was used her gift in her way on her terms throughout her life. So I took that all into account, and we talked and stuff. And after she passed, I'll never forget, some of the funny things that happened. One time I was in a bad car accident and got a nasty concussion out of it. And when you have a concussion, you have to go have brain scans and X-rays and all kinds of stuff, and make sure that you don't have any neurological damage and that sort of thing. And when you go to have an X-ray, if there's nothing wrong, it comes back as it's unremarkable, right? So I went and had a final X-ray after weeks of physical therapy because my balance was off and all these types of things that had happened during this car accident. I had 2 months of physical therapy and all kinds of things to kind of get my balance back. And I'll never forget finally getting the test results back after the last bit of physical therapy. And I was so happy because I didn't have to go anymore. It was a long drive and it was an arduous process of just trying to get my balance back and other things. And I was walking out of the parking lot, and clear as a bell, I hear my mom's voice saying, "I told you your brain was unremarkable." And I'm walking across the parking lot and just burst out laughing because it's exactly what she would have said. She was funny, and a little sarcastic, just to get that little jab in. And it just made me bust out laughing. And it was her way of just letting me know she's around. She knows she's watching over me, watches what's going on, and just wanted to make me laugh. And so it's one of those memories that I cling to, and it makes me feel good and warm and fuzzy when I think about her, because it's not. It takes me away from remembering how she was those last 6 months of her life and wasting away to nothing as a human being. And then knowing that on the other side that she's strong and vibrant and has that personality and that strength and that wit that she always had on this plane. So it was a wonderful feeling and a wonderful gesture on her part just to come through and give me that message out of the blue. It's something I just love. And I still use my mom. I use my mom all the time. I don't want to say I use her, but I do call on her to help me in crossing souls, because her energy is fantastic and it's easy for me to communicate with her. So if there's somebody that I'm with and I want to cross them over, I ask my mom to come forward and just have her reach out her hand and lead some souls across, which is beautiful and lovely. So not only do I get to feel and sense my mom, but she's also able to help me in this mission that I have to try and cross lost souls. It's just nice to kind of partner with her in that way. It's a way of staying connected. So it's beautiful, and I love it. In another story, my sister-in-law was having surgery, abdominal surgery, and it was supposed to take an hour. It wound up taking 4.5 hours. So it got major toward the end there, and she had some issues during surgery that caused that surgery to go on for a while. But when they wheeled her in for surgery, obviously, going in for any type of surgery, she was nervous, about going in and going under, for full anesthesia to have this surgery done. And when she was in there, I have to tell you a little bit about my sister-in-law. So I've known my sister-in-law longer than she's been my sister-in-law. I've known her since she was, going back to high school, which is, I won't say how many years it was, but it's a long time ago. And I knew her before she met my brother and wound up marrying him years later. So I've known her for a very long time, and she's known the family for a long time. And my mom has known her, and she's known my mom for 40 years at a minimum. And so when she was in having the surgery, obviously, surgical team running in and out during the thing, and she went in. She was supposed to be in for an hour. It took 4.5 hours, and they wheeled her out into recovery. And as she's in recovery, the nurses, everyone's dressed in blue with a blue mask, and they're all doing their thing and running back and forth and everything else. And all of a sudden, she feels a tap on her shoulder, and she just heard, "You're gonna be all right." And she did a double take because she knew that voice. And she looked up and saw my mom, her eyes, and just felt the tap on her shoulder while that was going on. And she knew exactly who it was. And then my mom made a graceful exit out through all of that chaos and all the other nurses dressed the same way and walked out the door. And it was a beautiful experience, and she right after that went right out. She just felt so calm, at peace, knew that she was going to be okay because my mom was there to let her know that it was going to be all right. And it's not a unique story. I mean, that's a story I hear a lot from clients, from parents who pass, from children who pass, and getting that story of how they saw and felt people before surgeries, or if there's a passing involved with it as well. Uh, it's amazing how spirit works that way to bring you comfort. And sometimes there's angelic energy around, or sometimes other people around. So, you know, if you're having issues, if you're having trouble or problems at all, call on your loved ones to come and support you and be around you. And when you see them or hear them or feel them, know that that is real. So many people like to poo-poo that as it was a dream, it was the anesthesia, it was something else. You'll know the difference, and I want you to accept that difference. We're told a lot as we're growing up that ghosts aren't real, that when you see that ghost bump in the night, is not really true. There's a rational explanation for everything, and it's just not true. Sometimes things that go bump in the night are things that are spirit. And most of the time they're good. As you heard during this whole series for 10 days, we wanted to talk about ghosts and hauntings. And we've kind of come full circle a little bit from those ghosts and to some things that were spooky, things that scared me, animal energy, and this wonderful mother energy for Mother's Day. And, I just want you to know that there is more to life. I see it. And you don't have to believe me, but just trust your own instincts. Trust what you feel. Trust what you sense. These are things that we're going to be talking about in more series down the line as we progress here. And I hope you'll be there to join me. And if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them. Topics that you want to discuss, or you want to share your own ghost stories, please feel free to do so. I look forward to hearing about them and possibly addressing those on a future show at some point. So watch for the signs. Cherish the time that you have with your loved ones while they're on this plane. But when they pass, look for the signs and listen, watch, pay attention to the signs from the other side, so that you can get those lovely messages that they're trying to convey to you. Okay. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks for watching.